Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Tyler Dunn here with Jim Monis for another episode of the Go Long podcast, brought to you by Blue Wire, part of the Blue Wire network. Get a lot of different podcasts, check them out. A lot of great stuff out there. And of course, we're always sipping on that Hamburg Brewing Company beer. I got a Louis IPA in my hand, got that Louis in the fridge. Jim is in Delaware, but I'm sure he's got Hamburg on the mind, anyways, right?
Hard not to. I miss the Louis right now. You definitely got me hooked on that, but I still want to go back to the 8.0.
A sneaky eight. I would definitely say it hits you like it's a double digit.
I
Kind
miss
of.
it. We're gonna have to get one this week when I get back.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey man, it's great to see you here in the virtual world where we're gonna get together, get in person. We want to see people in person. We're gonna have some live events and really meet some subscribers that go along. Anybody, if you're out in town, let's get together. We'll make it happen. And also, if you're thinking about subscribing to go along, if you buy an annual membership right now, in case you missed our special, you can get a hoodie or a crew sweatshirt on the house. So if you're thinking about it, you want to read some long form, you want to read a story you haven't read before, learn something new, just ding that subscribe button. Annual, we'll hook you up, and I think you're going to be pumped with everything that's going to be churning out at Go Along. Just great trip in Florida, Jim. Met with a lot of players down there, draft prospects, and I'm really pumped to share those stories with the world. There's some good ones in there.
You must have been working. You don't look too tan. I, that used to be a dead giveaway, especially this time of year at pro days. I'm working in Buffalo, and I'd like make sure I'd schedule Central Florida, South Florida, Georgia, Gainesville. And everybody's like, man, where are you getting this tan? I was like, it's work. You got to go to the pro days. You got to check them out. You got to see what those 40 times are.
It's true though, really. I mean, I was God, I drove to Tampa to see Marquez Valdes-Scantling from Miami, and that story's up if people want to check it out. But yeah, it was just kind of driving all over the place, meeting with these guys, and it was great. I mean, the whole NFL world kind of descends upon Phoenix or South Florida, I feel like this time of year. So I was trying to decide, all right, gotta go somewhere, gonna meet with a lot of guys. Let's go to Florida for the week. And it was great, learned a lot. But you're kind of a traveling man yourself right now, Jim, right?
It's tough saying you're on vacation when you're unemployed, but yes, we've taken a little vacation from Buffalo, going to see some of the places we love, Charleston, South Carolina, now back in Bethany Beach, Delaware, and be back to Buffalo this week. It's college basketball season right now, so I'm definitely amped up. We got Eastern Washington tonight in the Big Sky Final. So it's nonstop right now. I love this time of year, pro days and basketball.
The Big Sky Final.
Everybody's watching that.
Everybody's on that Big Sky. Real quick, as Allen Robinson threw the debate out there on Twitter, you always see it this time of year. I want to know where you stand because I know where I stand. College basketball versus the NBA. Gun to your head. What are you watching?
I have to watch, easy for me, NBA.
Thank you.
I think college basketball is horrible to watch. I love gambling on it, but it's hard to watch. I don't think the quality of play is that good. Kind of like we talked about with Eric Wood about college football a little bit. I just like watching the best of the best. But I will say this: I will not watch the NBA until the playoffs start. It's
That's a
just,
good point.
it's just too much. I mean, I love watching the highlights and keeping up with everything, but until the playoffs start, I really can't. It's hard to watch a game.
To sit down and watch a playoff NBA game versus a March, and I love March Madness. We all love filling
Agreed.
out the brackets, but just in terms of just the game itself, I mean, are you going to take the 19-year-old dribbling the ball off his leg with 9 seconds left, and then the 20-year-old misses two free throws at the other end, and then it's mostly kids kind of making. That's why you get those crazy finishes, and I get it. The crazy finishes are fun, they're entertaining, but it's not better. It's not a better. It's a much worse product than anything you'd see in the NBA in the playoffs.
No, for me. It goes way back to Chris Webber calling that timeout against North Carolina. That's a
Yeah,
little before your time, but that was kind of my high school days. And there might have been some gambling going on in high school as well. And that timeout was cost a lot of people some money. I don't want to say if it was me or not, but I just go back to that. How do you get mad at an 18-year-old or a
Yeah.
19-year-old, for making it? Hey, that could happen to anybody. And I think you're right. College basketball just doesn't have those guys in the NBA in the playoffs when they turn it on. There's not much better to watch. I mean, and to see where Dame Lillard and Steph Curry are shooting these threes from in that All-Star game from half court, like it's a free throw. I can't get over the skill level in the NBA.
It's unreal. It's unreal. So, all right. I thought we would have a hearty debate there, but it's good you're thinking right, Jim. I
I
like
like
it.
to
We're
go.
off to a good
No,
start.
I'm with you on that. I
You
just like
know,
gambling on college basketball.
I think, we were texting and we've been talking, up to this podcast, trying to figure out, what a good theme would be. And, whether it's locally with, a lot of our listeners obviously are Bills fans, and it was a busy week really for them, from re-signing Matt Milano, Darrell Williams, and your name, Doug Whaley's name, it kind of came up as, hey, you guys found these players. Like, that's your draft. I mean, you were a part of that, and your scouting department, and Sean McDermott, obviously. But like, it was good to see you guys getting a little credit for a guy like Matt Milano. So we're going to talk about this 2017 draft, because I think locally with the Bills, it set the course for the team. We've talked a little bit about Patrick Mahomes, so I'm not sure, how far down that road we need to go. We've gone down that a few times, but we'll talk about the players that you did draft and how you found those players. And then let's bring it national. Let's bring it to the whole NFL too. And in this draft, it kind of set the course for the modern league that we see today. I mean, there's a ton of star power, top to bottom, in this draft. So we'll kind of parse through it. I mean, Deshaun Watson, he doesn't even want to play for the Texans right now, so that's another angle. But let's start local, Jim. I mean, take it whatever direction you want. So, like, you know what? Let's pick it up where we left off with the Mahomes conversation. So I think most everybody has either, read our 2-part series that go along on what the hell happened there and all the pressure on Josh Allen, and how a big reason for that pressure is the owner Terry Pagula loved Patrick Mahomes. He didn't take Patrick Mahomes. We know what happened, but Tre'Davious White, not a bad consolation prize. If you want to start there, the floor is yours, Jim.
Well, that's one of those guys that you're happy about because there wasn't really much debate on him. Everybody, the coaches, the scouting staff, personnel, everybody was kind of on board with him. I think it was a matter. Sean did a nice job calling down to LSU and actually talked to some people that even kind of not recommended him more than Jamal Adams, but said as much of a leader and tough as Jamal Adams is, Trey White is every bit of that. And it would be a debate for this coach at LSU that we spoke with, that who he would really pick to, and when we figured that they're putting Trey White and Jamal Adams kind of makeup, we already liked his talent. I think we definitely felt fortunate that he was there to get that type of corner. You redraft that draft now, he's a top 10 pick.
Did you guys have a debate with anybody else there that you want to get into? And
so,
how,
and this is where we talk about it almost every podcast, how drafts can just get crazy. But yes, Zay Jones was on our mind at that pick. Not necessarily, that was a guy that we all kind of liked. We had Trey White obviously graded higher, but at the time, Zay was very intriguing to us because we talked about, we had his receivers coach on the staff and spoke so highly of him and really thought he had some qualities that would be good in the NFL. But, our scouts weren't necessarily as sold as where we had him on the draft. We had some area scouts that had him a little bit more in the 3rd round. And we didn't have that type of, everybody liked Trey White. So at the end of the day, Sean did some hard thinking on it. And really, I think when he really factored everybody's opinions on how strong they felt about Trey, that sold Sean to make that call on Trey.
It's a very nice way to put it, Jim. It's a very, very nice way to put that breakdown.
Hey, he had plenty of people. He asked plenty of people's opinions, and everybody that he asked was on board with Trey.
So you know what, everybody out there on Twitter, will you just tweet thanks to my man Jim here? Jim Monas 42. Tre'Davious White is a Buffalo Bill. And well, Zay Jones ended up being a Buffalo Bill, but he ended up being a Buffalo Bill at a spot that, the damage wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been, missing out on a Pro Bowl cornerback. That's a pillar.
It wasn't. I mean, yeah, it didn't. His lack of route running and really being a special guy with the ball in his hands, he never made anybody miss. He never really was great after the catch. So, you know, what are you really getting in Zay? He thought he had outstanding hands. I think his hands were good at the end of the day. He did have some drops in college as well. And we kind of thought that they weren't a problem, but I think maybe they were. Maybe we should have paid a little more attention to his hands. But I just don't know what Zay was going to do, what quality he had that was going to separate him to be a really good NFL receiver at the end of the day. We saw him as a size guy that had good hands, and he was tough. We had high character remarks from the coach on the staff. So we really thought he would just be a good player. I don't know if we thought he'd be great, but he did obviously didn't pan out. And he's still fighting. I mean, he's not, he's still fighting, but he wasn't what we thought.
Obviously there's a lot of mental health stuff going on with Zay Jones. I mean, we saw the footage.
I'll tell you right now, we didn't know. We knew nothing about any of that stuff, and especially with having his coach on the staff, and it was disappointing to think. Obviously I was going, but it was disappointing to think that how did we not get that from anybody in East Carolina or the coach himself. So
it's remarkable that you got that Tre'Davious White is that pick then at 27 overall. He's beloved by the entire fan base. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. It's he's always going to have the Mahomes thing hanging over his head to a degree, but if I feel like consolation isn't even the right word, but like he is one of the pillars of this team. I mean, they aren't in this position that they're in right now, competing for Super Bowls without Tre'Davious White.
Top 10, like I said, he would redraft that. He's top 10 pick.
Easily.
And anytime you can say that about a guy, and you can go through a lot of drafts and find those guys that would be way, a lot higher than where they went, but it's always good to get one of those. And what these guys we're going to talk about coming up too.
Boy. So is it that conversation in the draft room, what is that like, Jim? And we can move off this pick soon, but I'm just really interested because it's like you and Doug were very much a part of this draft. I mean, your fingerprints are all over these picks. And I think on an outsider looking in, they might think, oh, they're the lamest of lame ducks. They're let go the next morning. How much say did they really have? What did it really look like in there?
There were some questions on Twitter about this the other night that I thought were really good about who was making the call. And Sean had final say, and Sean was very prepared for everything, to take over the job that he did, in February, and then be ready to be, knowledge and have all the knowledge for the draft like he did. He really did a good job of working and as a coaching staff and personnel department. I actually really thought we did a good job with the coaches in that draft, getting them the guys to really look at and come together and make these picks. And I think that was the frustrating part. I know that it went, Sean and Doug Willie maybe never had that relationship at the top to, maintain our jobs. And I think that was so frustrating or confusing for us is we thought we really worked well with the coaches for that draft. And I think the results speak for themselves.
I think he shook your hand after the draft and said that was about the undrafted free agency.
Yeah, right? He just liked the process. He said he liked the process of the how the undrafted players went. And just said, hey, that was the best undrafted process I've been around. And thanked me, and it was really nice. And you're going home thinking, hey, this is gonna be fun. But yeah, next morning, bye.
You went home that night thinking,
yeah. It was still there was still something, there was still something not right in the air. But you just like to think the best, and it still felt like, things were going okay.
This is me talking, not you, but like, I don't know. I feel like I don't know the right way to go about a situation like that. I don't know what the handbook tells you to do. If you're Sean McDermott, if you're the Buffalo Bills, I feel like maybe there's a conversation had at some point that,
I think we had talked
a little bit more.
Yeah, it just wasn't the same. We weren't going to dinner with Terry and Kim,
okay.
Leading up to those weeks for the draft. And that was kind of a sign to me, like, man, is everything okay? Or at the same time, they were very busy with the Sabres, putting a staff together. So they were going through a lot. So we just felt like they were really busy. And, that's what it was. But obviously there was a lot of probably tough decisions being made behind closed doors that we weren't around for.
And he's obviously kind of getting his people lined
Yeah.
up
And
because it
that's, you know
happened
what?
10 days later,
That's
I want
right.
to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know they interviewed some other people but like we talked about, hey, you got to be comfortable with who's running the show. And he knew how Brandon worked and how he did things. And so, hey, they're doing well too. So it's, hey, we left them with a good draft, and at least they're keeping it rolling. So
Man, well, thanks for being so honest, Jim. That was really
yeah.
interesting. I mean, like, what's it like then? And I've talked to people in other front offices on other teams, and one theme that does come up a lot is, not just draft day, but even leading up to the draft, where the scouts and the personnel people like that have been grinding this, the entire college football season, and then all off season, you're seeing every play of every game, and how a guy's wired, how a guy's going to respond to adversity and on the field, off the field. And then sometimes like the coaches then come in late in the game, and they might have a 10 to 15 play highlight reel that they fall in love with the guy over this highlight reel. And that's happened in San Francisco. I had a scout out there tell me how like they had some issues out there with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, because it was kind of like a lot of the scouts felt marginalized. Like Shanahan has the power out there, and his coaching staff, they had a lot of say, and they were taking some players that the scouts didn't necessarily like. I mean, Joe Williams wasn't even on the draft board, the running back, and Kyle Shanahan just came out and they took him in the 4th round. Reuben Foster, I mean, John Lynch loved this guy. So I guess he was on board with it, but I think a lot of the scouts are like, I don't know about this. 31st overall in this draft, and obviously total bust. They would have taken him, in the top 5, I feel like. But I don't know. I'm just so fascinated by scouts, coaches, that relationship, that push and pull. Because obviously, like the Bill Parcells line, like if I want to get the food, the groceries, whatever the hell he said. But these scouts, I mean, you guys are watching these guys a lot more than these coaches are all year round.
It was really fun in New Orleans. We spent so much time with our assistant coaches. Coach Payton really believed, kind of what to your point is, where we need to be synced up as a staff if we're going to pull this thing off. Like the scouts need to know what the coaches want. The coaches need to know, can we trust you guys as evaluators and the information you're getting? And I'm telling you, when you're able to keep guys together on a staff and spend the off seasons, when you go to OTAs, the scouts, you need to be sitting in on these position meetings. I used to always go down to New Orleans in the off season and just sit in on meetings and just listen to these coaches, coach these guys, and really understand what we were trying to do on offense, defense, special teams. And Buffalo, we didn't really have a chance to do that. Doug Marrone wanted to do that. He really was trying to do that. But, he wasn't there. Then you bring Rex in, and we're trying to get to know those guys. He's out. Now we got Sean. You can't do that when you're rotating coaches. And we just didn't have the time to really build, I think right now they've built a pretty stable staff, both coaching and personnel, where they're not losing a lot of guys. So there have some continuity. And once again, it's how you really build this thing and sustain it.
That's a great point, because you're going to look for the same things. You know what they
Yeah.
want.
Yep.
And you're going to go find that with the background information, with the context of what the player is in his totality. And that's where this draft is interesting too, right? I mean, so this new receivers coach comes in, has this relationship with Zay Jones. He was probably pushing like hell to draft Zay Jones. Like, oh, let's bump the brakes here. We watched him pretty closely. Maybe we don't take him there, but we take him later. But yeah, Jim, I'm just looking at it here. So after that Trey White pick, I mean, what do you want to get into with the Bills?
Well, after Zay, it was
Zay, yep.
Yeah, after Zay, then it was Dion, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So you're talking about, here's a guy where once again everybody was on board with. There was no issues right there, and it was guy our scouts were on him early. I was lucky enough to go see him play. Temple played out at Memphis that year on I forget, it was a weird night. I feel like it was like a Wednesday or Thursday night game. It was a different, but anyway, it was I'll never forget in pregame warmups, the music's pumping, and most of the time it's receivers, corners, the smaller skill guys all dancing. Man, the one guy that was dancing and just had so much energy that Dion Dawkins. Like, just, it was awesome. It was like, man, you could see his athleticism just from him, in the pregame warmups, just getting into it. But his energy was great, and he played the game that way. So that was a guy I think everybody felt pretty strong about.
I mean, he's one of the leaders of this team now. I mean, on the field, off the field.
Yeah.
You could
Our
say, are
scouts
the
did it.
Bills here now without him? I mean, did you see
Yeah.
that in him too? Did your scouts?
Our scouts did. They really were on him good. And I think everybody I'm really telling you, I think, you always worry about, can these guys transition their pass blocking? I know personally, I was a little concerned if Dion could play left tackle. And if he's really ready for some of that edge stuff, but he's been well coached. He can take coaching, and he's playing the part. He's playing pretty well.
What a draft. I mean, I'm just looking at it right now. The pick before Dion Dawkins is Juju Smith-Schuster. And it looks like 4 picks later, Alvin Kamara to the Saints.
That Kamara pick. See what we were just talking about, how you could go through and start finding top 10.
Oh, I know.
I mean, you redraft Kamara might be, he's top 10, at least top 15, just because of his, he's like McCaffrey. He can do everything.
It's remarkable too. Like, so, I mean, it was a weird college career for him, right? At Tennessee. Like, how does he fall to
Alabama?
67?
It was a rocky road. He
right.
Started Alabama, goes to Tennessee, it just, but if he had a clean, if he was clean, like with no issues transferring and he didn't have anything bad or anything. I don't think it was anything like that. It was just that, leaving, I forget what it was, but for Alabama to give up on a guy, that's always a little concerning.
Exactly. I mean, Nick Saban is
right.
I mean, he's got so many relationships around the NFL. You do wonder, like,
right,
what's being
but
said.
That's another
like,
guy. I know our scouts were like, wait till you watch this, wait till you see this. That our scouts were on him too, and it was like, wow, it was because he could, because of his receiving skills too, route running. It was just,
it's remarkable. 3,340 rushing yards, 2,824 receiving yards. Cooper Kupp was a couple plays after Kamara there. But then, so Dion Dawkins, obviously you hit the bullseye there still. And then Matt Milano. I'm pulling it up here. 163 overall in the 5th round. What a find. 4 years, 44 mil, just signed this year. I think that, we talked on this podcast a little bit about it. It seemed like he was a player who would have a shot at getting a lot more than that on the open market. And I thought that the fact that it got to this point, that he would hit that open market. You wonder if the Bills are able to use the whole COVID cap thing to their advantage. And like, are you really going to get that out there? Maybe you won't get it. He kind of wants to stay in Buffalo. He sees a good thing going, and they kind of met at a number. But we'll get into like, what this means for the Bills moving forward and what they should or shouldn't do. But Matt Milano himself, what do you remember about scouting him?
So this is a guy that was interesting this is where I like to go through all the combine and pro day numbers and try to find guys that are hitting all the, kind of hitting all the times. But maybe, you always compare what starts in the NFL. So you always have a chart. Here's the average 40 time for the starting will linebacker, for safety, for a corner, vertical jump, 3-cone drill, blah, blah, blah. All the drills you do. But to me, that's what I like to see is what guy is hitting those, okay, he ran the same 40 as the average starter in the NFL. He jumped higher than some of these guys are jumping. He ran this drill better. Okay, well, we don't have, we might not have had him very high because he was a smaller guy, safety playing linebacker. So when you go back and watch his film and you're just like, hey, he's jumping out right now. He kind of jumped out at me when I went back and kind of looked at him. And our scouts liked him. Everybody was on board. Obviously, his character was off the charts and there was no issues. And scouts liked him. But that was a guy then, Gerald Dixon watched him as well, who was a pro scout. I had him kind of look at him as well. And he liked him. And we let the coaches look at him. They liked him. And then I spent some time with Sean in his office, kind of the morning up saying, hey, this guy's available. Sean put the tape on with me and he liked him. And there it goes. I mean, that's kind of the process where it can go right up to that draft day sometimes where, especially with a new staff and with Sean having so much to do, but I mean, really, he wanted to get his eyes on him because he knew everybody liked him. And so it was really a cool process with Milano and really nice to see. They've done such a good job coaching. I mean, he does fit the way they, the way they want to use him, and smart for him to stay and play with these guys because that's who, they're going to make him his best player.
That's wild to me. So that was a day 3 pick, right? Yeah. So
Day
the
three,
morning of day 3, you're sitting in Sean's office
yeah, we were just
talking
going
about.
over it a little bit, just watching him and just, and he kind of, you know, he was just making plays. Kind of, you just saw the flash, you saw the speed, the explosion, slipping blocks. You knew he wasn't going to be, not that he's not tough. He's really tough too, but he's not, doesn't have the size to just take on guys. But he was just all over the field. So you're thinking coverage, special teams, late round. That's what you're looking for in guys like that. And we took another guy, Vallejo, in that draft, kind of where we thought we were getting two, backup type linebackers that were going to be real. And when you have a backup linebacker, the number one thing is they better help you. They better be ballers on special teams. And we thought both those guys would be.
And there's a lot of like, are you thinking about the direction of the game too with a player like that? And just, okay, does he have this defined position? Is he an inside linebacker in a 3-4 or 4-3, or is this guy just somebody that's going to make plays that we got to take this talent and just figure it out because this is where the game is going. This is what he can do. I mean, what's running through your mind when you just start looking at a guy like that's playing one position in college? He's not necessarily going to do that in the pros, but really, what is that position to begin with? Now, to the extreme, it's Jamal Adams, right? Like what he's doing in Seattle, he's kind of a linebacker most of the time, it feels like, but he's a safety in name. So Milano kind of is you had to think outside the box when you're drafting him.
This is exactly kind of, we spoke about it a little bit, but Jamal, the safeties and linebackers, the game has changed. And there was a time when, Milano's size, I personally grew up, with the Eagle Saints. It was, hey, we went big. The size was the thing. And I think you have to really figure out, how are these guys going to stay on the field? Mm-hmm. We took a guy, Reggie Ragland, because, kind of fit Rex's defense. Well, it didn't fit Sean's defense. He wasn't looking for that straight ahead, just, take on and run stuffing linebacker. That's what Reggie is. Not that Reggie's not a good athlete, but, he's one speed guy. He's not going to be great in man coverage. And it just goes to show you, once again, you have to know what you want. Sean knows he wants his safeties to have corner type skills. We had that in Philly when he was there with, Brian Dawkins could play, Troy Vincent ended up moving, from corner to safety towards the end of his career. So Sean kind of knew, he's known that, like he knows that works. You get Hyde and Poyer, guys that, they have corner type ability, ball hawk guys, but also really tough, smart, instinctive. Then you put these linebackers together, and Sean wants some speed. So they get Edmonds and Milano, and they have speed at linebacker.
Real quick, Hyde and Poyer, that was the same offseason.
Yep, that was that free agent class. And that's those two guys. I'm telling you, there weren't many debates on those guys. And we were fortunate that Babbich's son, who's on staff coaching safeties, I believe, had him in Cleveland and really liked him. And I think he got hurt, if I remember correctly, but Babbich was like, hey, this guy's interesting. And I tell you, our pro scouting department, everybody looked at him, we looked at him, and, we saw something there. I can't say we saw what he was going to be, but Babbich's son really believed in him and pushed for him. And I do want to give him credit for that, because he really did a nice job of selling him, and he was right.
Boy, and Micah Hyde, I covered him in Green Bay.
Right.
We crossed paths, and just in terms of like our job and in the locker room, like you felt this magnetic pull to him. We talked all the time, and he was just so, insightful, informative, and just a good dude to talk to in there, whether it's about the NBA or football. But aside from that, on the field, like he just made plays. Like it didn't matter where he was. Like he came in out of Iowa, obviously, and it was like, well, the reason he fell in the draft is he a boundary corner? Are you leaving him out there on an island? You're obviously not doing that, but you can find a role for him, whether it's in the slot, whether it's at safety, returning punts. I mean, he was great returning punts in Green Bay.
Natural, very natural catching the ball, right? I mean,
yeah.
So
he's just a player. He's just a gamer.
Just a player, just a football player. Yep.
Yeah, and it's It's remarkable to me, and I'm so glad that Micah Hyde was honest about this when after he re-signed this offseason. I think he touched on it, but Green Bay like didn't even show any interest at all in re-signing him at all. And since Micah Hyde has left, they've gone through so many DBs. They've signed guys. They've drafted guys. What's happening at the end of the first half against Tampa Bay? I mean, Kevin King is getting beat deep. Like I feel like Micah Hyde, you want him on the field because his intelligence alone is worth so much more that we can even see tangibly. So good on him. Good on the Bills making that work off the get go, re-signing. Like, I mean, do you remember who liked him? Like, who was kind of pushing for him early on in free
I
agency?
think that was a total staff effort. I know our pro scouting department was really high on him. The coaches were high on him. That was one of those guys we target. That was an easy kind of target for us.
Yeah.
Let's go after him. Nobody debated it. One of those first visit. You line up. You're setting your free agent board. All right, who we get in the. Who we going to try to get in here right away? Because you don't want him to leave.
Yeah.
You want to get him first. You don't want him going anywhere. So he was one of those guys.
It's pretty wild how far the Bills have come in terms of like this specific moment in March, then till now. Like then it's like okay, like you just said, like you get him in the building, get him to sign, like make it happen, and that was a hell of an offseason to get him and Poyer, Hauschka. It was you're able to sign some guys where, I mean, now here they are. Free agency hasn't even begun. And Milano's sticking around, Darrell Williams is sticking around, Micah Hyde's sticking around, and you're able to get some of this stuff done. You don't have to be that team in the frenzy overpaying for guys where you guys were kind of in that tough position, and not any fault of your own. I mean, it's been like that in Buffalo since the 90s, where
Right.
it's like to try to convince a guy to sign with the Bills. It's tough. I mean, everybody has their preconceived notions of Buffalo. There's been a lot of losing. I can still remember Russ Brandon sitting up there with Mario Williams in that $100 million contract. Like that was a big moment because I was like, oh my gosh, this guy wants to sign here. Well, he cost a lot of money to get him to sign in Buffalo. But it just seems like the tenor and the tone of Bills and free agency, it really has shifted now that they're a Super Bowl contender.
It's funny you bring up that Williams, the Mario, that I remember that contract came across, and I just remember, we're all looking at each other like, really, like because back then he got paid like a quarterback.
You did, yeah.
And that was just didn't seem. You pay a defensive end like a quarterback. I mean, that was but you had to get him there.
He took the money. I mean, the Bills in that moment paid it, and honestly, he was fine. Good.
He was a good player, and then he really did fall off. I mean, he had some injuries, and he did get older, and he wasn't the same guy there at the end, but he definitely was a good football player. There's no question about that. It's not like Mario was a bust, ever as a high pick. He was a really good player.
I mean, he just checked out when he realized what Rex was doing in that ski. Eric Wood kind of confirmed it on the podcast a couple weeks ago, right? Like he just kind of quit on the team. He did.
Jim Schwartz, I told you what he said. He'd rather fight Mario Williams than Nickel Roby. Roby was what, 5'7"? He said, because if I'm fighting Mario, there's a chance if I hit him, he'll quit. He goes, there's no way Nickel Roby would ever quit. He said, but he did say, he goes, both guys will kick my ass.
But Schwartz is saying this?
Yeah.
It's why I can absolutely see that. Like
it was awesome. When Schwartz said that, I was like, that's a well said. Like, I mean, just, that's how he saw him. Roby was, I mean, you saw him play. He's still, that's why he plays still.
Feisty as hell, man. Yeah. Yeah, but it's different now in Buffalo. It all starts with the quarterback, Josh Allen doing what he did. You kind of dictate the terms now as a team this time.
It's going to be fun because they haven't, like you said, they haven't even started to go after, other guys yet. And but they're keeping their own. They know they're a good team. And that says something. That's good in the locker room too. That's a good, hey, I'm glad he's coming back. I'm glad we can do this now, and like I said, you want to go into the draft, not having to reach. You want to go into the draft, taking the best player available. You are a good team right now with a franchise quarterback. You can't reach for guys, and they're not.
Just to play devil's advocate though, Jim, like,
yep.
And tell me if I'm wrong, because this is the way I've kind of covered every team I've ever covered in the league now. It just seems like I tend to look at that last game, that last moment, the Bills in Kansas City. Okay, what happened? Patrick Mahomes had all day back there. All right, they weren't able to get any pressure on him at all. What happened to Patrick Mahomes against Tampa Bay? He's running for his damn life. He's running for 497 yards before he throws it or gets sacked, whatever that statistic was. I mean, it was they were relentless. They were getting after him start to finish. So, when Milano resigned, I kind of had the same reaction as everybody. It was like, wow, like that seems like a good dollar amount for a good player. They're clearly better with him than without him. But then I'm thinking, all right, well, what's the difference between you and Kansas City? Like, you've got to get after Mahomes. You need an elite pass rusher. The Bills haven't proven with this new front office that they can really draft defensive linemen. They haven't. I mean, Harrison Phillips, Ed Oliver, AJ Epinesa. I mean, let's give maybe Epinesa a little time. It was only 1 year, but nothing really impressed you out of him. Ed Oliver, he hasn't really turned that corner. So if you have proven that you can't draft players who can get after the quarterback, then sign players who can get after the quarterback, who are ass kickers that are going to have Mahomes running for his life. Are you going to have to pay a lot more for it? Above dollar amount? Probably. But there's guys out there, Shaq Barrett, Yannick Ngakoue, Bud Dupree. I mean, there's a handful. And I just felt like it would have been worth it for the Bill. I don't think they can do this now with Darrell Williams and Milano resigning, which, like I said, good for the Bills. But to me, I'm not a general manager. There's a reason I'm sitting here. But like, I would have used that money to just go all in on one of these other guys who could give you that effect. Because what happened when Milano was out there? I mean, Kelsey still went nuts. Mahomes still went nuts. Like, what has really changed?
Well, so far the Bills haven't done anything to necessarily improve their team, right? I mean, they kept their own, and that's big. Good. But what are they going to do to make themselves different, to your point, to get over that hurdle? Well, what we don't know is how they value Oliver and Spenza, behind closed doors. How do they see those guys? We're going to find out with the free agent signings and the draft. Will tell you if they don't go after some D linemen, they believe in these guys, or they're just going to run the risk that they were right. But to me, they may be saying, hey, we think Ed Oliver's on he's playing better. We like what we saw at the end of the year. Hey, Espenza, he can do some more. We don't know what they're thinking, but what these signings will tell us what they think of those guys. Now, if they go out and get some pass rushers like you're talking about, I'd be surprised if they go big on. I don't know if they can.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think they can now.
Yeah, they can.
I would have been more apt to just let Milano walk and then really try to go big game hunting, because I don't know. I mean, as much as we're talking about, these hybrid safety linebackers and how you just need weapons, but I feel like you can probably find linebackers in the draft more than you can find elite edge rushers in the draft.
I would agree with that. And I think this conversation might need to wait until after the draft. And then we can sit down and say, okay, what did they do? Like, what did they really do this offseason? And then we'll know, I think, what they were thinking behind closed doors.
That's a good point. Maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves. And they were in on JJ Watt. They were trying at least.
They went, right? So that's a good sign that, hey, we know that we want to get some type of difference maker up front.
And also, in these the COVID cap time, it's really hard, for these teams, Jim. I don't know if you've heard, like it's really tough to pay these players this time. Like we said, Jerry Jones, he's down to 2 playing helicopters, I think, in Frisco. So it's tough. Thoughts and prayers there.
Did you hear anything from Allen Robinson?
We just a little bit. We texted a little bit. I'm sure he's not happy. I mean, I mean, everybody read the story. Like he told me, he said, yeah, if it comes down to the tag, he's probably going to look for a trade. He's probably going to ask for a trade if he hasn't done it already. Like in the nicest, friendliest Allen Robinson way possible. It was like, I think the way I phrased the question was like, are you going to do what these other guys are doing, the Deshaun Watsons, the Stephon Diggs, and just force your way out regardless of the situation? And he said, basically, yeah, we'll see when we get there, but probably.
Yeah, I was, either way, at least it's a nice number for him, if it has to go down that way for 1 year. But yeah, you just like to see guys like that have a little more security, the good guys like we talked about, and productive and a really
Yeah.
good player.
Oh, and I guess what I was getting at too is that we'll see if there are a lot of really good players that keep getting cut. Maybe the Bills, any team, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So there's going to be
Right.
some good players out there.
That's what's going to be. It's really about to pick up and get fun. But it also goes to the point we talked about on a couple podcasts ago about the salary cap. Is these guys everybody's restructuring. I mean, I think Mahomes just restructured his contract already. Just like that. That's what we were talking about. How there's ways around things. These cap guys are creative. They're obviously intelligent and know the rules, and they're doing every team's starting to do it. They're all just restructuring. So.
And the Dallas Cowboys have literally paid everybody now. I mean, I can remember when all of these guys were going into contract years, and it was like, oh my, how are they going to spend on DeMarcus Lawrence, Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, Zach Martin, and they just paid everybody.
Are you
You're
fascinated?
willing to do it as an owner, you can do it.
Are you more fascinated to see what happens with Watson or Russell Wilson?
Man, I'm thinking Watson.
It's awesome. I know. Did you see David Culley on some interviews this week?
Oh man. I felt bad for him, Jim. I did. He's in a tough spot. Like, so obviously you guys cross paths a little bit, but it's just like, part of me, like I watched the Huddle and Flow podcast clips. Steve Wyche, Jim Trotter, they do a great job. We always we kind of take some shots at the state-run media here and there. I gotta say, there are some really good people at NFL Network. Steve Wyche is one of them. He is old school reporter, really good podcast. But that part where David Culley's talking about, telling his dad that he got this job was touching. I mean, it was great. Like, it was special. Like, you felt for him. Like, this guy has been in the NFL for his entire life. It means something. But then you look at the position he's in, and it's like a lose situation. Like, what the hell is he going to say about Deshaun? Deshaun Watson doesn't want to play for him. And you can kind of tell watching David Culley, like, he's just in an awful position.
I feel he's like you've heard it a million times. He's really a special person and somebody that a lot of people should look up to as far as his career path and where he's at. But it just doesn't look right. It doesn't sound right. It's like I feel like Houston's like, he's just going out there to the firing squad, like taking bullets. And like, what's the plan? I mean, it's going to be the Watson thing is, I can't wait to see how this goes down.
Well, you know what the plan might be, and I couldn't write it too strongly because it still feels a little far-fetched to me, Jim. But I mean, I was told that there are people around Watson anyways who believe David Culley was brought in almost to just be this short-term sacrificial lamb until they can hire Josh McDaniels. Like, when he gets out of his contract with New England, I mean, we've seen Nick Caserio there. We see Jack Easterby. They're going, Patriots South. Is that like too crazy for you to think about, to literally hire somebody to fire him in a couple of years? Is that possible in the NFL?
Yes, it's possible in the NFL. There's nothing. I don't know what you could tell me that I would say is not anything in the NFL is possible.
Plus, Jack Easterby and Nick Caserio, they've just got to be shitting bricks, the tampering and all that. Like, they don't want this stuff out there. That's the last thing they want.
Last thing.
What a mess that team is. What a mess. Just
really
trade Deshaun Watson. Put him out. Like, please, just get him out of there. He's too good to be around all of that destruction. Oh.
And were you surprised by the Patriots with Cam?
Not really. I mean, there's a perfect example of like how news is reported, kind of like when the first number came out, I think it was like 14 mil and people are freaking out, and which that by itself isn't a lot for a quarterback, but like when you actually look at it, it's nothing, right? It was just a couple mil. It wasn't with a ton of incentives. Like he can get to that number if he does X, Y, and Z, but they're going to be trying to sign another quarterback. They're going to be trying to draft another quarterback. Cam Newton probably realized I have zero other options. I might as well stay at this number.
I agree with you totally. can't say I'm surprised by it. I'm actually glad because it would be cool to see if Cam does ever come back around. But I mean, his play didn't warrant to think he would. I'm surprised the Steelers. I can't believe, and we talked about this way back with Big Ben. Rivers at least did the right thing and said goodbye. I hope Drew Brees says goodbye. I thought Big Ben should have said goodbye. But these teams aren't prepared for life without these guys. You're telling me the Steelers, I just didn't see it with Ben's play this year or Brees. And I feel like the Saints are still trying to somehow figure a way to keep Brees, which blows my mind away.
What's going on in New Orleans right now? Nobody's talking about that at all.
Isn't it crazy? Like, that's a major decision. You're going into the season with Jameis Winston. Sean Payton will lose his shit if that guy's spreading the ball around like that to the other team. I promise you that. He's not going into the season with Jameis Winston. If he's going to turn the ball, there's no way that's who he wants playing quarterback, unless he thinks he fixed him.
Taysom Hill.
Well, yeah, that guy. That's a fun every series, every other series. That's ridiculous. That guy can't throw. But
you're an anti-Taysite.
Love him for what he does, but he's not going to consistently make throws to beat NFL teams. I can't. This Big Ben thing, I just couldn't believe. It's strange.
Brees, though, like, is he in any position of leverage? Like, I know he's one of the best ever, but like, if I'm the Saints, I saw how that season ended. I don't know if I want Drew Brees to be my quarterback right now. I don't want him to be my quarterback right now.
But they're not prepared for life without them. They're really not. I mean, the Saints would be. They would find a way just because they're so creative on offense. I mean, look how many games they won with Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill back. They've over the years have proven they can get by with some backup style quarterbacks, and they will. But I just can't believe they would think you could go into the season with Jameis Winston. That blows my mind away. So to your point, this adds to this whole. You never know if they're going to be in the mix, and like you said, those teams that are quiet like that. The Saints, nobody's talking about that right now.
They aren't.
Are they finding a way to maybe go after one of these guys? I don't know.
This is our weekly podcast reminder that Brian Gutekunst and the Green Bay Packers are brilliant and geniuses, because this is why you draft a Jordan Love. This is why you draft quarterbacks when you don't need one. You don't want to be stuck in this weird, awkward transitional period. If the worst case scenario is you didn't draft T. Higgins in the first round because you drafted a quarterback, then that's fine. That's fine. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting, though. The Steelers and the Saints, man, I don't know. I don't know how that shakes out. But on Russell Wilson, like, I just talked to a source in Seattle today for a little bit, and I don't know. I tend to agree with this guy in that the roster's pretty damn good. Like, I think every quarterback situation should be looked at on its own merit. I can't throw Seattle and Houston in the same bucket here and say both quarterbacks should try to get the hell out. I feel like Seattle, is it perfect? No. Like, has their offensive line been pretty shitty a lot of Russell Wilson's career? Yeah. They also were pretty banged up at the end of the year. They also have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, a consistently pretty good running game. On defense, they were better at the end of last year. What their problem was?
They were playing better.
They were really good on offense the first half of the year, really bad on defense, and then they were not so great on offense and really good on defense at the end of the year. I don't know. I think if I'm a quarterback, I'm looking at that situation. I think that's not that bad. I think cooler heads prevail there. And I mean, even Russell has to see that, as passive aggressive, high school gossipy he is right now.
It's a strange situation, and I'd love to know his relationship with Pete Carroll. There's a Brady Belichick feel of that to me a little bit. Like, does he want to say, hey, see how you do without me? Like, it's just, I don't know. Just like Brady was like, how you doing without me? I wonder if there is that type of like friction. I don't know enough between those guys, and you probably know more just from talking to guys.
I couldn't get a lot on that today, unfortunately.
Pete Carroll to me,
wasn't plugged in with
Carroll, whatever.
You know,
He's a rah-rah.
does he
He's
have
a
a gum
rah-rah.
sponsor? Did he ever get a gum sponsor?
No, if he does, David Culley for the Houston Texans, he might need to get that guy's that number, because I'm telling you, every time I saw Coach Culley, like watching Bills games, I mean, he was a heavy gum chewer.
Like I don't have as much.
Yeah,
I'm not a gum guy. I don't even know the last time
yeah,
I,
me
I
either.
chewed gum, but like the open mouth gum chewing, you know,
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what it
I'm
was. He
all
did
like,
it.
it kind of gives me anxiety. Like, aren't you're gonna bite your gums, man? Like, you're something's gonna happen there. Like, it looks uncomfortable. But I guess if you do it that much, you kind of know how to chew gum that aggressively. It's pretty aggressive.
So there's an art to chewing gum.
I guess. I mean, maybe that's why Russell wants out. You know, yeah, I wouldn't want to be around that, but
That'd be annoying to be around that all the time.
it would be. So, what are you
You
looking
know what?
for? Sorry,
No,
go
I was gonna check Eastern Washington score quick.
ahead.
Um, you want to hear a funny Pete Carroll story at the combine?
Oh my God.
You know how you have a pet peeve about the grocery carts
Oh God.
in the
Of
parking
course.
lots, right? Which is outstanding.
It's
Well, I have a pet peeve if you're in an elevator and going down. Okay, so you're going down and it hits a floor and it opens.
oh,
I
I know where
don't
you're
like when
going.
people come on before you get off.
Oh, thank you.
Is that
Oh,
a good one?
that's a fantastic pet peeve.
I'm coming down at the combine, you know, and I try to get off, and this guy like basically almost like runs into me, and is an assistant coach for Seattle. I didn't know him, but it was right after they won the Super Bowl. So he comes barging in. I couldn't even get off. I just kind of take a step back, and then I didn't know who he was. But then right behind him was Pete Carroll, and he kept he followed him right through.
No,
And
no.
I just said, hey, excuse me, guys. Hey, you're the champs. I get it. You're the
You
champs.
called it out. You did
I
that.
did just like that. And I walk off the elevator with my hands up, like, come on.
Good for you.
Can't let it wasn't, it was just one of those deals like, come on, how do you not let somebody get up? That drives me crazy.
Oh my God, Jim. I knew I liked you because these little minor nuanced things in society, they say so much about who you are as a human being. Always, always. Like what you do with the shopping cart, how you get onto the elevator. I mean, number one is how you play basketball. I feel like
Great.
are you diving for loose balls? Are you hustling? Are you unselfish? Like that's probably what you are like in real life as a person. Or are you hogging the ball and all that? But oh my God, all right, we could do a whole podcast on this. But I just got back from Florida, so it was the first time I traveled in about a year with COVID and everything. But next to the shopping cart thing, maybe more than the shopping cart thing, Jim,
Oh,
what drives me insane is all right, it's kind of two part. So the plane lands, right? You get up to the gate, the light dings
oh,
instantly.
love it.
The people who instantly feel the need to stand up and get their bag and
Love
then
it.
stand there like an imbecile. Like,
Love it.
screw you, man. Like, what? Oh, great, you're standing up and now you're an idiot. Like, that person's terrible. But the person who's worse is when you are deplaning. All right, everybody, and the budger. You know, it goes row by row. The person who feels the need to budge and barge in front of you as the plane deplanes is probably worse than shopping cart guy. I absolutely worse because what you're saving 1.6 seconds about to get to the gate if you have a connection. What I've learned to do, Jim, and I did this just now coming back from Fort Lauderdale, Buffalo. Somebody tried to barge. So what I do is I don't know if anybody can see. I stick my right elbow. I was in the left. I stuck it out so I could feel it coming. You can sense it, right? You can say, well, you like they're a little nervous and they're shaking and they're you can kind of see it in your peripheral. I see this happen. I stick that elbow out and I kind of maybe I pushed it back a little bit, but I mostly just held firm. Boom, went right in my elbow. I didn't say a word. Just kind of gave him a half glance back, grabbed my bag, and got off. More people need to do that because this is wrong.
Couldn't agree with you more. It's the most simple process there is. It's row by row. See, everybody knows who's getting off first. Just let it happen.
Yeah.
Just let it happen. You're not saving time. And by you jumping up and like that and going in front of somebody, you're just telling me what you are. That you think you're that important. And It's I agree. That's a really good one. We could probably do a whole podcast on just traveling through airports
Oh
and
my God.
flights and the lack of courtesy and just it's obnoxious, some of the things you see when you're traveling.
It really is. It really is. And it says everything about you as a person. In that like
Everything.
split second, like I know you are a selfish asshole. Like right there. Because
That's
guess what? Our plane landed on time. So no, you don't have to hustle anywhere. We're good.
it.
You're just an asshole.
And you told me everything. You told on yourself by
Yeah.
doing that. I know exactly what you are.
I hope he's got a bruise in his sternum. That's my only hope there.
Sound like you got him pretty good.
It was. I mean, I don't think I exaggerated that much. I think I made some pretty good contact there. But you're driving, right? You're not flying anywhere. You guys have been driving all over the country for this
Yeah,
trip.
we did this one the hard way, but it's yeah, I'm ready to fly, to be honest. I'm how was it?
It was good. I mean, Delta, they did a really good job of. I mean, it's great. There's nobody in the middle seat, so you've got room.
Perfect.
Everybody gets on, gets off, unless you've got one of these idiots. There aren't really many issues. So, it's just kind of not to get all COVIDy on everybody, but it is kind of funny to me that you've got to wear a mask, for the whole flight. Okay, fine, but then you still come through with the drink service, the food service, and then so you obviously take your mask off to eat the food and drink the water, whatever it is. I I don't know.
It's
I don't know. I'm glad this Corona's getting the hell out of here because we need some normalcy, man. It's
it probably felt
about
good
that
to fly
time.
though. It probably felt good just to be, on a flight and
It felt good to fly. It felt good to sit down with these players and talk in person because guess what?
yeah.
Sammy Watkins isn't going to talk about, good and bad entities entering and exiting his body, on a phone call. I mean, the best stories are rooted in the best conversations, and those are had in person at somebody's house or over dinner, whatever the case may be. So,
I like that.
job wise, it was so refreshing. I can't wait to write these stories. We had the one on MVS with Green Bay up this week. I met up with Kenny Moore, the Indianapolis Colts cornerback. He's got a place in Davie, Florida. So we sat down for like an hour and a half, and it was interesting. I mean, he's probably like the best player, best DB that we don't talk about. He's phenomenal in his own way.
Highlight interceptions, phenomenal athlete. I agree with you. They don't talk about him enough. And we got to let the listeners know we're going to try to, I'm going to try to do some scouting reports on some of these guys you're doing stories on and just maybe some of the players the Bills are signing and the college quarterbacks, everybody always wants to talk about. We're going to get into that as we get closer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry to bury the lead there. I mean, I'm
No,
thrilled
I'm
for
saying
you.
it's going to be exciting. That's cool that
Definitely.
you were like down there with those like guys like that. That's some digging.
It was fun. It was fun. It definitely was good to get back to some normalcy with the job. And, I can't thank everybody out there for subscribing and checking us out because I feel like, when people put their trust into my newsletter, I want to put that money back into the company and go around. And meanwhile, we're going to try to build this podcast up, man. It's the podcast game
Fun.
we know you've got a lot of options out there. You've got a few. So to spend your time with us, it means a lot.
Hey, I'm the first unemployed guy to take vacation, so I can't complain too much. This is great.
Well, if there are NFL teams out there listening, just know I'd love to have Jim forever, but he's way, way, way too smart of a football mind to be, blabbing with me. So hire him as whatever because he deserves it.
That's
Do you
all.
want?
That's all I can ask
We
for.
should do a mock interview or something for a podcast, Jim. That's what we could do.
Well, if they listen to the podcast, they might not want to hire me because we talked about not drafting Mahomes. We took Peterman in that 17 draft.
He's still in the
So
NFL. Come on.
you know what? Still playing, still back up like we thought maybe he would be with our boy Gruden.
Well, I hope that, and they are. It was cool to see on Twitter a lot of Bills fans giving you and Doug and your staff some love for that 2017 draft because, I mean, you're such a selfless guy. Like the Mahomes stuff is what it is. A lot of people messed up there. A lot of people,
Whole
com-
league.
completely. And I will say you and Doug did tell Terry, hey, it's your team. If you want him, you can take him day of the draft, and so that was out there. But look who you drafted: Trey White, Matt Milano, Deion Dawkins. I mean, these are 3 players that are absolute franchise cornerstones for these Buffalo Bills. I don't know who it was. It might have been Field Yates or some
What?
national reporter,
Right.
tweeted out, the Milano news, and then they put Sean McDermott's picture with, and I get it, McDermott was there, but look,
Right.
you guys were the leading the show in the front office. You were pushing for this, so credit where credit's due. I'm glad we got into it a little bit.
Yeah, that was a fun one tonight. I like revisiting that. And you're right. There was a lot of good done. And I think that's why it's still fun for me to kind of, I like rooting for the Bills because you see those guys playing well. And it's cool to know the work done by the scouts and, seeing all that happen. I like it.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to meet people in person. So when we get you back,
Okay.
Jim, let's
Let's
do a
get
live
one in this
show.
week. Yeah, let's try to do one this week. That'd be fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for podding it up while you're down there with your little man, with the whole fam, all of it, Jim. Thank you.
Talk soon.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next time.